Today I'm going to show you how to make this fun fabric wrapped rope bowl. I'll show you how to make the embroidered base, embroider a faux leather tag, and add the tassel. If you don't have an embroidery machine and you want to make a plain base, I will show you how to start the bottom of a rope bowl so you can just use your rope and build up and make a rope bowl. This is an easy project which gives great results. Let's get started. Here's what we're going to use for this project. I've got the Kimberbell Happy Place embroidery projects. I'm going to do the sewing space is my happy place base. You can pick any of these bases. You can choose your rope. You can use Kimberbell project rope, or I have some generic 3/16 of an inch clothesline rope. This was really inexpensive. It's a lot thinner than the Kimberbell project rope. I'm going to be doing a fabric wrapped bowl. I'm going to try this out. I've got my Kimberbell Happy Place embroidery projects embellishment kit. I want to make the tag. Here's the little faux leather tag. We'll do a tag finish. To do my fabric wrap, I have a honey bun of the Emma fabric line by Sherry and Chelsea at Moda. The first thing I do with any honey bun or jelly roll when I take it out of the plastic, I set it down, I get a lint roller, get a nice clean sheet, lint roll it. You will be surprised how much fuzz comes off. Look at that. I'll peel this off when it's not sticky anymore, and I'll do both sides. It's all lint rolled. I did 3 full sheets on each side. Then I took one more sheet and went over both sides to make sure they were nice and clean. This step is optional. I like to starch my fabrics. It makes them a little bit more stiff. It makes them easier for me to work with. If you saturate it with the starch, it will shrink lengthwise, but not widthwise. So this size will stay the same. Lengthwise, it will shrink. For making a rope bowl, it's not going to matter. But if you're making a quilt and you need the entire length of all your strips, keep that in mind. What I did was pulled out a selection of fabric strips and I gave them a light spray starch. I folded over one side like this because these have a pinked edge and I don't want the raw edge to show. This is optional. You do not have to do this. You can do this with scrap pieces, random sizes. I just happened to grab a honey bun. I've got them all in order of how I want them on my rope bowl. I alternated solids with the whites, like this is a green background, a white background, yellow background, white background, and we're going to wrap as we build our bowl. You can set these aside for now. The next step is selecting your base if you want to make the embroidered base. But when we go to build the rope bowl onto the base, I'll show you how to build a rope bowl from scratch if you're just using all rope. I'm going to be making the sewing space is my happy place base for my rope bowl. There's 2 options here. There's a 5x7 hoop and an 8x8 hoop. I'm going to try the 8x8 bowl today. Something I like to do whenever I have a pattern or a chart that has 2 columns like this, before I go to prep my fabric, I grab sticky notes and I cover up the one that I'm not doing. That way I don't accidentally cut anything wrong. The only measurements I now see are the 8x8. I'm going to need a fabric 1, a fabric 2, a fabric 3, and a fabric 4, some shape form interfacing, fusible backing, and medium cutaway stabilizer. These are for my little flags. There's random solids in my collection. That's for my tomato pincushion. I pulled a white on white for the base, and I have this for the back. There's scraps of fabrics left over from quilts are perfect for projects like this. You also need some shape form interfacing. I need 2 9x9 pieces. This is shape form interfacing. It's a Kimberbell product. It's kind of like a stiff fiber. Now it does come folded, so you have to unfold it and measure it. You can iron this. In fact, a steam iron does kind of help puff it up, but don't iron it too much. It gets really, really hard. It sort of gets felted, like if you wash something that's wool. So what I'm going to do is spray it with a little water and just press right there and then right here along the seam. I'm not going to iron the whole thing. You need 2 pieces. One is the base that we'll be doing our embroidery on, and then for another one you make an insert for the bottom of the rope bowl that helps make it more stable and durable. Once you have everything cut, you need to prepare the base back fabric. You want to fold and press both pieces in half widthwise, wrong sides together. So length is the long side, width is the short side. Put them right side down because you're going to fold them wrong sides together. Get any lint off. I've got like dog hair and fuzz on these. And then you're going to fold them this way, like that, and take them to your ironing board and press them. Then everything will be ready for our rope bowl. We'll go ahead and prep our materials for our tag. There's a separate file for stitching the leather tag. I've actually made the butterfly rope bowl project, and I have the printed instructions already, which include printed instructions for the tag. It's the same that you would find in here. You need wash away topping, and then you need wash away stabilizer. This is the wash away embroidery stabilizer and the wash away topping. We'll need a 3x3 square of the light tan embroidery leather. I've got this color leather. It came in the Happy Place Embroidery Projects embellishment kit. A 3.5-inch square of this, the wash away topping. And when we go to stitch the tag, we're going to use this wash away stabilizer in the hoop. And if you look at the pictures here, you can see you can put the tag and have the rope come out and have a bead and then tie it off. You can add a tassel, which is what I think I'll do, like on my butterfly rope bowl. There's a little tassel right there. So we'll be looping the rope. You don't have to add a tassel, you could just leave it as a looped rope. Here's my 3x3 square. I'll go ahead and set all the products for the tag aside. Down here at the bottom is the key for the thread colors to use to make it look just like this. I may pull some different thread colors. I did pick this for the green on the tomatoes for the tomato leaves. This will outline my flag. That matches that really good. I did pull a light pink and a dark pink, more of a medium pink, but these are for the little flower right here at the top. That'll look nice. And then instead of changing the color for the words, I picked a bright yellow. This fabric has yellow in it. All the words are going to be in the yellow. I like that. It's going to be nice and bright. It's going to pop against my white fabric. There's two different ways to make the base of your rope bowl. Here's the difference. The butterfly rope bowl and other rope bowls I've done, you stitch out a separate base insert, so one layer of the shape form, and you just cut the shape form and then you set it aside, and then you do your embroidery on one layer. The instructions that come with the Happy Place embroidery projects have you taping down both layers and embroidering over both layers. I find I don't get as good of a result with this, having to embroider through both layers. So today we're going to make the separate base insert and then embroider on one layer. It's a simple process. You can always try both and see what works best for you. You want to load a piece of medium cutaway stabilizer, hand tighten, screwdriver tighten. I'm going to be working on a baby lock meridian today. I have my files on USB. I've got my instructions right here. Let's bring up our file. USB, and I need the Happy Place rope bowls. And I'm looking for the Sewing Space Happy Place. Not that one though. That says 4x4. That's an additional project. There's the 5x7. I need the bigger one. There it is. 8x8. I'm going to go ahead and hit set and embroidery. The way this is set up, it's set up to use two pieces of the shape form at once, but we're going to do one as a base reinforcement and then go back and embroider on the other piece. So if you look at the way the file is laid out, the first circle here is your placement line for the shape form. The next is the tack down, and then we're going to stop after that and trim our base placement. And then the next is your fabric placement and your fabric tack down. So we're going to go through the first two circles and then we'll back up and start from the beginning again. Make sure you're at the beginning of your file. I've got a neutral thread loaded and I'm going to stitch my shape form placement line. You can see it stitched out a circle. Grab a piece of your shape form, just one. Set that down. Make sure that circle is covered. This fits nice and snug. I don't think I need to tape this. It's not going to go anywhere. If it's sliding around in your hoop, grab some of your Kimberbell paper tape. I'll go ahead and I'll put one piece on. And you can tape it just to make sure that it stays down and doesn't shift. And then we're going to stitch the tack down line, and we're actually going to use that as a cut line. We're going to take this off, go to the cutting table, and trim this and set it aside. If you taped it, get the tape out of the way. Go ahead and take this out of the hoop. We're going to trim right on this thread line. And when we get to the end, this is going to slide into the bottom of the rope bowl to give it extra stability. I've got a rotating cutting mat that'll kind of help. It does not have to be exact. Don't worry about it. If you get any weird flat spots or you don't cut it exact, it's not going to matter. This is just going to be inserted into the bottom of your project to help give it extra stability. Once it's trimmed, you can get rid of the stabilizer, set it aside. We're back at the machine. Remember, we need to back up to the beginning. I've got the first circle here, and I see I'm on stitch 0 out of all the stitches that are in it. If you're not sure, you can back all the way out and reload your file. We're going to go ahead and stitch the placement line. Grab your shape form, just like before. Make sure you cover that thread line. If you need to, add a piece of tape. I'm going to add it down here this time. This part's popping up. And then we're going to stitch the tack down line. Once that's tacked down, you need to trim any of this excess that's outside the circle. I've got this trimmed. The next thing we're going to do is stitch another circle that's going to be our fabric placement line. Once that's stitched out, double check, make sure you don't have any threads or dog hair or anything on this base that's going to show through your fabric. If you've picked a light fabric, which I did, I've got white on white polka dots. You want to cover that line. I am going to tape this. Put a piece up there and a piece down here. And I'm going to keep an eye on it as it stitches. It's going to go around again. It's going to tack down the fabric. Now we're going to start on our design. The first thing it's going to stitch are those little flag lines. It's going to stitch a placement line for the flag fabric, and then it's going to tack them down. So I'm going to switch my thread and then stitch those flag placement lines. We want to place our fabric covering those placement lines. I've got a piece of tape on it just in case. Now we're going to stitch the tack down. Once that's stitched, you want to go ahead and remove the tape and trim everything that is outside of these stitch lines. I've got all my shapes trimmed. Now it's going to stitch the decorative outline. I have to switch to light pink. It's going to stitch half of the flower, the half that's in light pink. I'm going to switch that thread and stitch that out. The next part is stitching the bottom flower and then the letters that are going to be on these little flags. I pulled the color for dark pink. It didn't seem like it was dark enough, so I pulled another instead. I want to make sure that thread is visible on this fabric. This is much better. As you're working on your projects, if you need to switch colors, switch them. It's not a big deal. I'm going to change my thread. It's going to stitch the bottom of the flower and the words that are inside the flags. I wanted to show this. That wasn't the bottom of the flower, it was the center, which I guess was supposed to be light or taupe. It's fine, I don't care. It's going to be dark pink, and I'm still going to let the bottom stitch dark pink. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but this stands out really well in person. The next thing that's going to stitch is the pincushion placement and tack down, and then the decorative outline, small tomato fill, and the front flower. They're using medium pink for that. I'll go ahead and leave the medium pink on my machine. That's the placement line for your tomato fabric. I want to make sure I cover that placement line. Got a nice dark red for my tomato. Then we're going to stitch the tack down line. We're going to trim the fabric that is outside of the tack down line. Then it's going to stitch around the tomato, and it's going to stitch the little mini one up here and stitch the bottom of the flower. That is all charted in medium pink. I'm going to go ahead and leave that as medium pink. The next step is the pincushion details. It says to switch to light pink. I picked a pretty bright green. I think it'll be okay. The next things it's going to stitch out are the words. It stitches 2 words and then it stops for a thread change and then it stitches the last 2 words. I'm going to stitch everything in yellow. It's going to make it nice and bright and it'll look really good with that fabric. Personal preference, you can stitch it as it's listed in the instructions or you can always change your threads. You can even make each word a different color if you like. I'm going to change it to yellow and let it stitch out all the words. We're going to place our back fabric. Before we do that, change your thread color. I'm going to go back to my neutral thread color. Grab your 2 back fabrics. When you go to do this, if it doesn't cover the project, you folded it the wrong way. Remember the beginning how I showed you how to fold it? If you accidentally folded it the wrong way and pressed it the wrong way, like this, when you go to lay them down, they're not going to overlap. It doesn't mean you cut it wrong. You probably just folded it the wrong way. You want to place the top piece first. Make sure you're about an inch overlapping the center. You can see the center. My hoop has a center line. So I've got about an inch there. That's good. I'm going to check up here. I'm easily covering that stitch line. And then your bottom piece is going to overlap this piece on top. This is the folded edge. The open edge is right here. For the bottom, the folded edge is here. The open edge is down here. Make sure you're overlapping about an inch. You want the bottom piece on top. This has to do with when we turn this right side out, we want it this way because we'll be tucking our rope in underneath on the bottom. And if you overlap it like that, the rope is going to come out the backwards direction you want it for attaching it to your rope bowl. It's not the end of the world. You would just have to twist your rope. This will just make your life easier. Make sure the bottom piece overlaps the top piece by about an inch. We're going to tape right across the whole entire center of this. We don't want this to move and we don't want our foot to get caught. Tape over that fold. Keep an eye on this. Don't walk away from your machine. We're going to stitch the tack down line that's going to hold the base back fabric in place. The base back tack down line went around once for me. I backed it up. I'm going to tack it down one more time. I really want to make sure this is secure, so I'm going to let it run around a second time. Go ahead and remove all the tape and then get your project out of the hoop. We're going to trim around this and then flip it right side out. I like to use pinking shears. Pinking shears gives you nice notches and helps it turn nice and clean. If you don't have pinking shears, you can cut it with scissors or a rotary cutter, and the instructions do say to notch it. I've trimmed with my pinking shears. Now you need to flip it. You do have to bend your shape form to do this, but we're going to press this as well. I'm going to press it from the back first, and then when I press it from the front, I'm going to cover it with a pressing cloth to protect all the embroidery stitches. Get your base reinforcement. We're going to put this inside. I need to go around and trim this and make it a little bit smaller. I've trimmed off some extra. I want to see if this will fit. There we go. You tuck it in, and again you have to bend it. You sort of have to jam it inside like that. Now if you stitched over both pieces, you wouldn't have to do this. There. Now it's nice and secure. I'm going to press it again. I can see that I've got some wrinkles in my fabric. As I'm pressing it, I'll probably put a little bit of starch on that and see if I can't get those wrinkles to come out. Sometimes I get wrinkles with the rope bowls, other times I don't. I'm not sure what the secret is. Maybe put the fusible backing on the back of this before you make your base and do all the embroidery. Just for comparison, here's the butterfly rope bowl. See how smooth this is? This fabric's a little bit thinner. I can feel this fabric is a little bit thicker. That ironed out really well. I put a little spray starch down here, and up here it's the Faultless Heavy Spray Starch, and that helps shrink the fabric a bit and helped iron it down. We're going to go ahead and set this aside. We're going to build our rope bowl on this, but I want to get my tag ready. So after we do our rope bowl and we build up all the rope, when we get to the end, the tag is ready to finish it off. I don't want to build the whole rope bowl, get to the end, have to stop, make the tag. Let's make our tag. You want to get your wash away stabilizer to make your tag. You can do this in a 4x4 hoop. I don't have a 4x4 hoop for this machine. I'm going to use a 5x7 hoop. I've got this loaded, hand tightened, screwdriver tightened. We've got our piece we cut at the beginning. Now we need to cut the piece of the wash away topping, so we have that handy. The instructions say a 3.5 inch square. This is like thin saran wrap. It's called wash away topping. 3.5 inch square, that's what that looks like. I'm going to take these things over to my machine and decide which tag I want to stitch out for this project. I'm back here at my machine. Let's bring up the Happy Place files, Happy Place rope bowls. Let's look at the tags. There's a floral. This looks like the flower that's stitched out. There's Stitched from the Heart, Handmade with Love, the mandala, a lemon, and sunshine. I like the sunshine because I did all of my letters in that yellow, and I've got the yellow right here. I put away all the other colors already because I'm really a neat freak, so I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to stitch out the tag placement line. Once that line is stitched out, get your tag leather right side up. You want to make sure you cover that placement line. You want to go ahead and add a couple of pieces of tape. This is a faux leather product. It's a PVC product, so no animals were harmed. They call it embroidery leather, but it is a faux leather product. Then you're going to get your piece of the wash away topping, this sort of plastic wrappy stuff, and you want to cover the entire tag like that. And then you want to tape all the way around this wash away topping. Everything there is covered. Now we're going to stitch the tag outline and the little corner eyelets. Once this part of your tag has been stitched, switch your color thread to whatever you're using for whichever design you selected. Mine's going to be yellow. I'm going to stitch out the entire part of my design. Tag is all stitched out. I've taken it off my machine. You want to go ahead and get your project out of your hoop. Look at the way this is stitched out. It's like an orange peel quilting pattern. That's really neat. Go ahead and remove your tape. We're going to have some crinkly noises. As you're removing your tape, this wash away topping is also going to pull away. That's fine. Let it pull away. Be careful of your stitches. Don't just like rip it and ruin your stitching. I forgot to stitch the trimming line. If you do that, give yourself a 1/4 inch. See how I've got the 1/4 inch line with that stitching line and the 1/4 inch line with that stitching line. I'm going to go ahead and trim. That looks good. Make sure it's straight. So you still have some of this wash away topping. And then of course you've got the wash away stabilizer on the back. Run it under the faucet, soak it in a bowl of cool water, brush it. I'm going to go get a bowl of water. It also tells you to cut out the center of the little rivets here. I did not do that on this tag. Ooh, and looking at this tag, looks like I'm a little bit closer than a 1/4 inch. I'm going to trim more off of that. This catches the threads on my serger. Since I have a bottle of water and I have this and the dogs are sleeping and being patient waiting for their dinner, let's do this really quick. Pour the water in. You can see the wash away topping, and then the wash away stabilizer is on the back. You get in a little closer. See how it just sort of melts away? And it feels a little sticky. So if you think you have everything off and it feels sticky, you don't have everything off yet. That's better. You can see it coming off. You can let it sit for a little bit. You can also get one of these brushes. It's just a sponge brush, a craft brush, and that'll help brush away that extra stabilizer. That works really well for this kind of wash away topping. That looks good. And then the back is also washing off. You can kind of see I've got some loose threads now. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Looks like everything is washed away. It's trimmed up real nice, despite the fact that I did not stitch out the last trimming line. Once you've got it completely clear, got all the stabilizer off, you want to lay flat to dry. I'm going to grab some Kleenex. I'm going to just press it on that. I'm going to blot it. That looks good. And since it's doggy dinner time, I'm going to let this sit here. I'm going to make sure it's nice and flat. Remember, at the end, we're going to wrap this around the top of our rope bowl like this. So if you weren't paying attention and it kind of dries a little funky, it's fine. But I'm going to make it as flat as I can, and I'm going to let this dry. My tag is now dry, and overnight I put my base underneath some clappers, the little wooden things you use to press your quilt blocks. It's really flat now. These are ready to go. We're going to talk about fabric wrapping our rope. I have 50 feet of 3/16 inch cotton clothesline. If you're using Kimberbell project rope, you'll see that it's a lot thicker. You can see the difference. You can also use cording. I think I'll make another video showing how to use cording. And then this rope came from the Mountain Thread Company. I think this is a 5/16. You can see the difference. When we go to start our rope bowl, I have a scrap piece of rope. I'll show you how to build a bowl like this, just using plain rope. There's not enough here to actually make this bowl, but I'm going to show you how you would start the bottom if you don't have an embroidery machine and you're not doing this embroidered base. I'll show you how to start with just the rope in the center. I went ahead and pulled out the end. I have my first piece of fabric. I've got my base. I have my silicone finger covers and my smoking hot glue gun. You want to turn this over to the back. We're going to be tucking our rope on this side so that when it flips to the front, the rope will start building around this direction. That's why it was important when we put the back on the embroidery machine that we laid it down in a certain way. If you did it backwards, the bottom will be flipped up and your rope will be sticking up. Which, if that happened, if your bottom piece is on top, you can still put your rope here and it'll come, let's see, actually you would want to put it here so it's stuck up and they worked around this way. But we're going to go ahead and flip this to the back and we're going to put it on the left side. You can use fabric glue if you don't like glue guns. You need to take your fabric strip. If you folded your edge like I did, so I have a clean edge, again, you don't have to. But if you did fold it, you want that facing up and your fabric strip is coming off to the right, and you're going to put it on like this at an angle. Get that more angled. At an angle to your rope. I'm going to just put a little glue on here to hold it in place. So we'll just put some glue. Put the fabric down. This doesn't need to be neat because we're tucking it into the base. Rope goes down, fabric goes at an angle. Now that's cool enough. I'm going to pull these off. When we're wrapping our rope and building our rope bowl, it's going to come down at an angle like this. And you'll be pulling and wrapping like that. So I put one wrap around it, or you can twist your rope right now, because we want to tuck at least an inch underneath. So I've got the first wrap started. I'm going to actually wrap it a little bit more and I'm going to clip it. It'll make it easier when we get to our sewing machine to start building the base of our rope bowl, the first run around. So wrap it around a few times. That looks good, and grab a clip. You can also use a pen if you want. I prefer to use clips. This end is going to slide underneath And I'm going to put some hot glue down there. I've got about that much of it underneath. Put these back on so I don't burn my fingers. If you're using the Kimberbell project rope, it tells you to fray the edge and kind of pull it so it'll lie flat. Once you have this flipped over and it's setting on something, it pretty much lies flat. I've never had a problem with that. I'll show you the butterfly rope bowl just in case. All I did was tuck this under and glue it, and it sits perfectly flat on my shawl. Got that underneath. Hot glue, don't burn your finger. Again, you can use fabric glue if you don't like hot glue, you don't like glue guns. So it's underneath and pushed over. I'm going to shove it as far over the side as I can get it. That's really hot. I'm going to hold it while it cools. Once that's secure, we're ready to head over to the sewing machine and start building our rope bowl. I'm using a Juki QVP today. You need a sewing machine with a zigzag stitch, and I find a smaller sewing machine actually works better for building rope bowls. The reason a smaller machine works better is because as you build your base and you're lifting, this is not in the way. If you've got a really big machine, it's harder to lift. Let's look at selecting our zigzag stitch. What I've done here is run a couple samples and put the sizing, the length and the width of my stitches, and then I can look at this and use it as a reference. Run some sample stitches, get a scrap piece of fabric, and then write on there all the sizes. I like to have this because I don't always use the same size rope. Let's take this scrap rope, for instance. Let's pretend we're going to build a rope bowl just out of the rope. I told you I'd show you how to do this. And I'm using a regular sewing machine needle. You can use a thicker needle if you like, that's fine. This is how you would build a rope bowl that's just rope. Start turning it in the center. Get yourself a nice little coil. Now I want to use a little bit of a tighter stitch for this. Let's see, I'm looking at this. I'm going to start with this 4.4 by 2. That looks good. So I'm going to bring up my zigzag stitch and change it to match that. 4.4 by 2. And I have a neutral thread on here. You want to spin this until you've got, say, at least an inch or so. That looks good. This is what you do if you're building a rope base with no embroidery base to your rope bowl. We're going to put an X with our zigzag stitch. So lift up your presser foot and go across. I've got a thread cutter on the foot of the machine and I have a knee lift on this machine. And then you want to go across in the opposite direction. You're just making an X on it. And that's your starting point. Then all you would do from there, when you make rope bowls, you want the rope coming off to the right like this. Because as you build and it gets bigger and bigger, it's going to build off to this side. Then you would find your starting point. My presser foot has a notch. I like to put the notch in the seam. You'll see this too when I build the embroidered base. But I'm just showing this to you in case you're not doing an embroidered base bowl. I'm going to put my needle down. And then down again. I'm checking the stitch length. That actually looks pretty good. And then all you do to start building is try and keep that seam where the two pieces are meeting in the center. Make sure your zigzag catches on either side. And it's hard when you first start with just the rope. You might have to lift your presser foot as you go. And you would keep going around and building. I should have cut my threads, but that's okay. This is just an example. I don't even think I have enough here to make a coaster. So you would build it as big as you want the bottom of your base of your bowl. Let's say that's all I want. Maybe I want a really, really tiny bowl. If I want a super uber tiny bowl, I can start lifting it right now. And that will start building that bowl shape. I only have about a foot left of rope. But you'll see, as I'm lifting, it's starting to build a bowl. This is where the small machine comes in handy. Let's go to the end of this rope and see what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to leave extra to tie in a knot, so I'll back up a little bit and then go forward again. And my machine has a tack down stitch too. This is too funny. Oh my goodness, it's so cute. Look at it, it's so tiny. And you can take your rope and put a knot in the front. Just like that. I actually could have gone a little further. Okay, let's trim that. Pull that nice and tight. I'm going to trim it off just a little bit. The tiniest rope bowl ever. Look at that. It's so cute. So that's a quick version of how to make a rope bowl just out of rope. Let's put a bobbin in it so you can see the size of this. Here's the class 15 bobbin, the little plastic bobbins most people have for their machines. There you go. This is too cute. I'm going to use it for something. Now I didn't trim my threads and I can actually see right here I probably missed a couple stitches. But look at it, it's so cute. It is way too cute not to keep and not to use. Love it. I'm going to trim these extra threads off and we'll get started on our project. So I'm here at my machine. Here's my base. Here's where we just hot glued. We're going to start building our rope bowl. I always like to do the first wrap flat before I start building. And if you want it bigger, you would continue to wrap it and keep it flat as you go. When I look at my machine right now, I have it on 4.4 by 2. Here's 4.4 by 2. This is why it's really helpful to have a sample like this. Take your rope, fold it like that so you can see how much space you need. You need to go back and forth and catch both sides of the rope. So if you have one of these scrap pieces, you can fold it in half, lay it down over the rope, and look and say, does that catch that rope? So for this one, it does, but I'd like it to be a little bit wider because I'm going to have a fabric wrap. I think I'm going to look at this one that says 5 by 2. Fold that in half. Lay it down over the seam, and it gives you a visual of how the zigzag will hit. That looks pretty good. I'm going to start with that. That one is 5 by 2. But actually, our first row, we need to make sure we catch this base. I'm going to go a little bit bigger for the first row. I'm probably going to do this 5.4 by 2 because we want to catch the base and the rope. And then once I start building, I'll bring it down to the 5 by 2. So I'm going to go to 5.4 by 2. And let me show you my machine. Here's what I'm talking about. You can adjust the length and the width of your zigzag stitch. Play with it. Make that sample sheet. It really helps. As we're working, everything needs to go on the right hand side. You can put your rope on the floor, which is probably what I'm going to do. Just don't let it get tangled. Loosen some of it. Give yourself some rope to work with. And then drop it on the floor. Or if you have a chair, put it on the chair. And your fabric strip is also going to hang off this direction. I'm going to wrap a little bit more. And remember, you're wrapping this at an angle. fold is on the top if you've folded your fabric. I'm going to stick this under the presser foot. So I have a clip here from earlier. Fold on top and pull. Here's your angle. So here's your rope going straight up and down, and I'm pulling this down off to the right. If you get a bump, smooth it, tuck it under. It'll get caught when you're building your rope bowl. And I'm going to wrap a little bit. I'm doing one piece of fabric at a time. Here's what I have wrapped. I've left a little flag here at the bottom because we're going to tuck in with our next strip. And when we bring on our next strip, I'm going to fold over that edge and then fold over the edge of the next strip to give it a clean edge. We'll do that when we get to it. Let's go ahead and start building our bowl. Remember, have all this hanging off to the right so it stays out of your way. I'm using a neutral light beige. I think it's Aurifil 2310. If you want to get creative, you can certainly use colored thread with this. My machine has a little speed dial. It's got a turtle on one side and a bunny on the other. If you're new and it's your first time doing this and you've got a speed, you can move it to turtle to keep yourself from accidentally flooring it. You're going to want to pull this off to the side, match it up with this, slide it under your presser foot, get that center seam where both pieces meet, where your base meets your rope, center that with your presser foot. It's really handy. Mine has a little notch there. I don't know if you could see it. It's clear plastic. I'm going to go ahead and drop my needle, and I'm checking my zigzag. I can see where it landed. It did land inside the rope. Let's bring it down again. You can hand crank too. Hand crank the first few. It's hitting the base. It's hitting the rope. It's hitting the base. It's hitting the rope. So this is a good stitch length and width for me, the 5.4 by 2. We're going to go slow and start building the base. If you've got a funny fabric tuck, kind of work it in if you can. It'll be fine. Let's go ahead and go around with this flat. Don't lift it yet. Okay, we're coming around to the beginning and we're coming around to the end of our fabric. It's happening at the same time. I'm going to trim this extra thread. I'm going to go a little bit further and get these two pieces to meet up. So when these meet, you've got the seam here and then the seam here. Just keep that centered here and then you'll start centering it on the next seam. Looks like I had a little jam here with my fabric. I didn't wrap it tight enough. Not a big deal. I'm going to unwrap. I'm going to go ahead and trim that last little bit right there. Pull that out. Or not. There we go. And rewrap that. Make sure that lies nice and flat. And let's bring this around to match. The reason it's catching is because that's where the rope was tucked in. There's a bump underneath from where the rope is coming out. So you just have to sort of work with it as it goes around that corner. There we go. Now I'm on to these two pieces. I'm away from the base and I'm on rope to rope. I'm going to bring my stitch down a little bit because I've got really skinny rope. I'm going to bring it down to that 5 by 2 instead of the 5.4 by 2, which is what I needed to catch the base. If you have fabric glue at this point and you want to fabric glue, you can. I'm going to tuck that under so I have a clean edge. Bring it around. That fold came out. So I'm folding this edge. I'm folding it under to make sure it stays clean. And again, personal preference, you don't have to do that. That's folded. Here's my next piece. If you did the fold, make sure it's on the right. I'm going to fold the top of this one. and then start wrapping this piece. Just kind of pinching everything. Again, if you want to get a fabric glue, you can certainly use a fabric glue there. You can use a pin, whatever you like. I'm just going to wrap a little bit before I wrap the rest of this fabric. And just hold that right there. I want to sew this part down, and then I can wrap more of the fabric. I'm going to hold it like this. We're going to go around a little bit. We are going to start lifting. I want to make sure I get this tacked down. I'm going to give it a slight lift as we go. And then I need to watch right here and make sure I catch my new piece of fabric. If you have a stiletto, you can grab one. I don't have mine handy. I'm going to use the scissors. I'm just watching to make sure I catch the new fabric. There it goes. New fabric, old fabric. Okay, so that's secure. Now what I'm going to do is do what I did before. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this next fabric strip. I've got that piece of fabric wrapped. Left a tail at the end again. Let's go ahead and continue building our bowl. I'm going to start lifting my project. This base is big enough. If you want a really big base, you can keep it flat for a while. If you started with something smaller and you wanted a smaller base, you can keep it small. We're still going to center over the seams as you're bringing it together. Now we're going to be lifting. With my left hand, I don't just lift, I'm kind of lifting, and I'm also sort of holding it down to make sure that it's going under the presser foot. And then with my right hand, I'm pushing. And you're sort of bringing the pieces together to make sure you're holding them together as they're going under your sewing machine needle. I'm at 5.0 by 2. Let's go ahead and lift and start going around. You may have to kind of squish this a little bit because it's got that flexi foam in it. It's a little stiff. So when you first start building, if you've got to push it, bend it, push it down, squish it, whatever you need to do, it's fine. It pops back into shape. It's bumping out again because right underneath here, that's where that rope is. It's the same problem I had before. I don't think it'll happen the next time, but I do need to cut my thread and then start again. And just be careful where that bump is underneath. Get it out of the way. We're coming around. And I'm right at the end again. It's time to get my next fabric strip. I'm going to do the same thing and build onto this. I just wrapped one more piece of fabric. You're just going to keep doing the same thing. Lift it, and we're going to build the walls as we go around. Let's do the next piece of fabric. Here's the end of my fabric. Here's the bottom of the design. Let me come in and show you really quick. See that? So the top of the rope bowl is up top. We're going to do that tag and the loop finish. So if I keep going this way, I can do the tag and the loop, and it'll be here in front. but I want it to finish at the top. So I'm going to need to grab another strip. This is going to get me around to about here. I only need to go another third of the way-ish around the bowl. So I need to grab one more strip and then sew it and get all the way around to the top. I'm watching for the top center. That's where I want to stop. So we're going to slow down. We're up at the top center. We're going to make our loop. It doesn't have to be pretty because wherever you attach it, wherever you join everything, it's going to be covered by that fabric tag that you made. I'm going to go ahead and back tack this real quick. And I'm going to cut. Let's slide this over to the side and make our loop. Here's where I stopped right here. It's a little bit before top center, which is perfect. I need to decide how big I want my loop. I'm also going to go grab my tag. Here's my tag. That's going to help me determine what I want my loop to look like. This is going to fold over and be attached like this. But I want a little loop because I wanted to hang a tassel. I don't measure. I just try and I eyeball. So let's look at that. And let's pretend the tag is attached. That would be the little loop, and then the little tassel would hang off. So if that's not big enough, you can pull more. If it's too big, you can pull less. You can figure out what you want it to look like. And remember, it's going to kind of hang like either like this, or right here with the tassel hanging down. Or if you want it in back, you can tack it down and have the tassel hanging on the back. Or if you don't want the loop in the tassel, let's say you just want to end it, you can end it and cut it where you want to end it and cover it with the tag and have it end underneath the tag. You don't have to have the loop in the tassel. I just thought that would be fun to show. So here's where my stitching ends. I'm going to hold that there. I'm going to put this on again. That looks pretty good to me. I'm going to clip it. And I do want to stitch it a little bit past where the tag will be. Here's my stitching right here. I'm going to tuck this under and cut it. Get some scissors. There we go. If you want to glue this fabric, you can. I'm just going to roll it. And again, it doesn't have to be pretty because where it's tucking right here, we're going to cover with the fabric tag. So if you have a fabric flag coming out the back like I do, a little bit of fabric, it's fine, it doesn't matter, it's going to be covered. Make sure it's wrapped. Get that under there. And now we're going to have to stitch here and then here. And I want my loop about that big. Back to the machine. I'm going to go ahead and stitch right here first and get this to be the size loop that I want. Just hold these two pieces together. I want the loop about that big. Right there. I'm going to go back. There's my loop. Now I need to attach this part to the bowl. Again, don't worry about this. This is all going to get hidden under the tag. Now we're going to stitch this part of the loop, the inside, to the rope bowl. Don't worry about any frays, any fabric pieces. It's going to get hidden under your tag. That looks good. I'm going to go backwards a little bit. And cut my thread. Here's my tag. It's going to go like that. I have 28 feet left. I started with 50 feet, so I used 22 feet of rope for this project. If you wanted a higher bowl, you could easily make a bigger bowl with this and make the sides taller. Plenty of rope. I've got several tassels to choose from the embellishment kit. I don't think I'll use the blue since there's not a lot of blue in this project. There's the white, which doesn't really stand out. There's also these buttons that are included. I'm not going to use those this time. These are the three that are left. I like the green. The two pinks also look good, but I think the green is going to be the best match for this project. It matches really well with the green at the base of the bowl, and I think it'll coordinate well with the tomato. Here's how it will look with the leather tag and the tassel. It looks really nice. Let's attach our tassel. You run the tassel loop through the loop on your rope bowl and then put the tassel through the loop. It's a little tight for this project. It's a big tassel. Just take your time and be real gentle with it. Once you have it through, give it a pull and set it where you want on your loop. If you want it hanging on the back or if you want to hang it on the front, get it arranged so you like the way it looks. Let's attach our leather tag. Figure out where you want to place it on your rope bowl. I'm going to use a glue gun for mine. Get it into position, have a look at it, and then check for any stray threads. If you happen to see any extra threads popping out, take a minute and go ahead and trim those before you attach your tag to your rope bowl. I'm going to place mine right here at the top where all the rope joins together. You'll cover that with your tag. I'm going to use my glue gun for this. You can hand stitch this if you want, but I find the glue gun easier. Just remember to be careful with your fingers. Put a little bit of glue on that and then attach your tag. I'm doing the front side first to make sure I get good placement. Then I have a look at it and then I check the back side, make sure it's nice and even, and then I'll be putting the glue along the back side. Give it a good squeeze, let that glue set, and then we're going to glue the back side of the tag. Once the front side is set, I flip it around to the back. I'm putting a little glue on the top of the rope and along the back side of the rope bowl. I want enough glue to hold it down, but I try not to over glue so it squishes out. Go ahead and get it in place and then press that down and hold it so your glue sets. Make sure to press down the corners and all parts of the tag. I always go back and double check the corners and add a little bit of extra glue to each corner. Just again, be careful of your fingers, wear those finger covers, and then put a little bit under the corner and press it down. And then check all your corners. Again, a little bit of glue, put it there and press it down and go all the way around your tag. I'm also going to add a little bit of glue right here at the top. There's a bit of an opening here because that's where our loop is. So there's a little more volume of rope on the other side of the tag where the loop comes out. I just want to make sure that this is on there really well and I won't have any issues when I'm ready to use my bowl. So I'll add a little bit extra there, make sure it's set nice and secure. You can also check your loop where it comes out of the tag. Make sure it's fully secure how you want it to set, if you want it lying down in front or in back. Add a little glue if you feel it's necessary. I want mine to lie flat, so I'm going to put a little bead of glue between the loop and the top of the rope bowl to help keep that rope secure because I'm going to be using this in my sewing room. I don't necessarily want the little loop moving around a lot. I don't want to catch it on anything. So I'm going to put some glue there and go ahead and press that down and hold it in place so it can cool. Double checking my bowl and notice this space that didn't get stitched. I can't put it on my machine because the whole thing is done. You can see that's where the rope tucked in underneath. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right there to hold that into place just in case. It's probably not going to come out, but the glue is going to make sure that it stays secure so I can use my rope bowl without worrying about it. It came out really cute. Let's put some things in it so you can get an idea of the sizing of this project. I'm going to use this for things like my thread, rotary cutter, all of my little sewing notions. I can keep it on the table next to my sewing machine. I hope you've enjoyed making your rope bowl with me today. It's a great project. You can change the colors with whatever fabric you pick, change your embroidery threads, and if you have a scrap of rope left over, you can make a super tiny rope bowl. If you have any comments or questions or projects you'd like to see, please leave them in the comments box below. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. See you next time.